What's going on? It's time for another episode of Too Hard for the Radio, transmitting from the future free state of Greater Idaho. I am the one armed madman. And with me today, we've got Christopher Choate. Chris, it's a pleasure to have you. Nice to meet you. How we doing today?
Good, good, Nick. Pleasure to be here, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So you're not the first military vet that I've had on who's gotten into fiction
Mm.
after their time. What do you think it is about the military? I always one of the things that I've always thought is like, you're thrust into this position where maybe you're cool with what's going on, maybe you're not, but you've got a lot of downtime and your brain gives you some time to think about things and how the world ought to be rather than how it is. Like, what do you think it is about being in the military that kind of probes people to become writers?
That's a good question. I would probably go with deployments. You're away from your home. You can only do so much, and there's a lot of downtime. So you read a lot,
Yeah.
you think a lot. You watch some movies that you probably wouldn't watch anywhere else. So I think that's a lot of it, and then just the experience from it. You do get a lot of experiences visiting. I like to say it's parts of the world that you don't see on the tourist brochures.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
you do learn from that, and that probably leads to fiction. I would think would be my guess. I would say.
It kind of makes sense in that way, right? Especially like I didn't factor in, kind of seeing the world for what it is rather than what you get on the brochure.
Yeah.
Like I've at one point when I was younger, me and a buddy and some family, we drove from like the Los Angeles area all the way down to like Ensenada. And you're driving through some really gnarly places, as you go down there. Especially like Tijuana is a crazy one because like you're in San Diego, like probably one of the most beautiful cities in the country. The
Yep.
weather's perfect. You've got these pristine beaches, nightlife, incredible restaurants, the best Mexican food in the world. And then you
Yeah.
get right
Yeah.
over the border and you're in Tijuana, which is like houses made of like shipping containers and, cardboard and just really desolate places. And it was always strange to me. I still think about it when you
Yeah.
go, from that spot in San Diego right into the slums in Tijuana and you go, man, like, how is it that one group of people can be so successful and then literally miles away there's another group of people that are like some of the poorest people in the world, and I was just never
Yeah.
able to like kind of square that circle, you know what I mean?
It's that's a question for the ages. It's an imaginary line, and like you
Yeah.
say, it's just light and day once you cross it.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, we are very fortunate to be we're living where we are.
Oh yeah, birth lottery, right? Like there's
Oh
nothing we
yeah,
can really
yeah,
do about it, but I mean, I haven't been to a lot of like really desolate places. Mexico is probably the worst I've been. I've been to some bad places in America. I mean,
yeah,
there's spots. I lived in San Francisco for 5 years and there's spots in San Francisco if you were to just like take a picture of the alleyway that you're in, you'd be like, "Oh, that's in Ecuador or, some horrible terrible place in Africa or something like that," and then you zoom out and it's like, "Oh, no, this is the financial district of San Francisco."
yeah. Our that's sad. That is sad. And our larger cities have some areas that are just
Look like war zones.
should be, yeah, war zone. Should have got to that. And that yeah, that is sad. But you're right. I was deployed to Turkey, and my mom at the time was all worried about me. And I was telling my mom I was in D.C. at the time, and go, I feel safer walking around here at midnight than I would in D.C. at midnight. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just the way it is, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
uh,
I was supposed to have this lady on the podcast. This was years ago, but I still remember like doing the research and I don't remember what happened, but she never ended up coming on. But she did like a solo motorcycle trip through Africa from like the top of Africa all the way
hmm,
down to South Africa. And I remember thinking like, God damn, that's dangerous for a woman to do that alone. Like
yeah,
solo traveling for women is crazy. And I remember looking up like, I wonder what the most dangerous countries to travel, as a solo woman are in. And the US was right there. Like it was
they
right
probably
up at
are.
the top. And I never really like thought about that. And I'm like, oh yeah, Chicago, people disappear all the time. Detroit, like a lot of these big cities, people just disappear. and you never find them again, you know? Even in our, like, national parks, people disappear all the time.
Yeah, yeah, it's not. Yeah, like I say, don't hear about it much, but it is sad. It shouldn't be that way, but that's not unusual. I guess the world's not the way it should be.
No, never is, and that's a great thing about fiction, right? Is it gives you a chance to, like, think about how the world ought to be rather than how it
Yeah,
is, you know? And
yeah,
that's like I'm like a libertarian. I kind of really hate the way our system is. You know, I'm not a fan of war, and fiction gives you this chance to like live in a different world and
Mhm.
think about how like if we had a clean slate, how would we do this? Or if we had a chance to do it over, what would
Yeah,
be, you know, the way to do it right? Or, you know, if in a post-apocalyptic scene,
yeah,
like how would we rebuild? What kind of structures, power structures could we use instead? Like how could we organize people and labor? Like it's always an interesting, like thought provoking
yeah,
project to go through a different world and think about like, are these people doing what they think is right, or are they doing what's actually the right way to do it, you know? And I've always found that interesting about fiction, and I think people like me enjoy fiction for that aspect because they're
that's
not happy with the world we live in.
no, that's a good point, and it gives you a chance to project something, and like you say, and give someone else thought, and if someone reads that years from now, who knows? They might come up with a better idea.
Yeah. Yeah, so, tell me a little bit about your book.
Um, okay, it's Apollo Wept. It's a talking about fiction. It is a dystopian America. It is things have not gone well, and I started writing the book that came to me. I'd been wanting to write for quite a while. I've been encouraged to do so, and 2020, that lovely year.
Mm,
uh, all was going on, and I think Portland's where we tore down a mob, not we, but a mob tore down a statue of President Lincoln. And I just remember looking at that, and I'm thinking, if we're, you're tearing down a statue to him, who most our historians consider, one of our greatest presidents. Yeah, I know there's some issues he had. Obviously, they all do, but still, obviously, a very prominent, very important American. And if you're tearing a statue down to him, I just my thought was, well, where would we be like in 80, 100 years from now?
yeah.
And I created a scenario, which I have some strategic planning time in the Pentagon. So I kind of use a scenario building that's used for building future scenarios for, future worlds, if you will,
Mhm,
or in our case, military cases. But and I call it unhinged. And it's just what would happen if we just keep on this slope. And this America I have write about in Apollo Wept. We're broke, first of all, which is I think we're broke today,
yep,
but
absolutely.
we'll definitely be broke in 2104 the way we're going. So China is basically funding us. So we're broke. Well, we're ashamed of our past, which kind of came from the thing with Lincoln.
Mhm,
You can look at our history, and we've done a lot of things wrong. Every country has. So, but if you just focus on those, it's easy just to focus on the bad, forget all the good. So we're ashamed of our past, and also the third thing is that we were obsessed with identity politics. We have walked away from your content of your character,
mhm,
MLK's dream, and we're just totally obsessed with what you are, not who you are, but what you are. And in that world, we're erasing our history. And as they're burning records and racing books, we come up upon the Voyager probe, and launched in the '70s. And you're a sci-fi guy, so you might see a little incorrect thing here, but just it's minor.
mhm,
But we they find out there's a plaque, and that plaque has a man and a woman on it.
mhm,
And this is denial. This is with our identity politics. This is just totally unacceptable. And we cannot have the nation decides. We can't have that sailing off into the cosmos to stay in our legacy. So we send a ship built by China, and it's called the USS Despair. And it's going to sail out, and it's going to intercept the Voyager probe, and it's going to replace that plaque with one that shows the scientifically proven and correct 101 genders and 68 sexual orientations. We're going to put that on the plaque, and we're going to save our heritage and make the galaxy safe for equity.
funny.
So
That's funny. That's a
slightly
great
absurd there,
premise.
but
That's a great premise. I like
if
it,
you do
man.
satire, absurd works very well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. blood guilt's never a successful way to run a country, right? Like
Yeah,
we were
right.
talking earlier about, birth lottery, or like we were just lucky to be born
Oh,
here
yeah.
in the greatest
Yeah,
country in the world, and
absolutely.
other people weren't, and
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do about it. Like I've actually got a book here. I can pull it up and show it, but it's called I've got a note on it, but it's called Lincoln's Indispensable Man. It's about William Seward, the guy who
Sure.
bought Alaska,
Well,
you know.
Alaska, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like a distant relative of his, so I
Oh, really?
wanted to
Really?
get the book, and he's an interesting character, right? Because
Mhm.
he was he was basically the idea machine behind Lincoln's, push for equality and push for freeing the slaves. Like that was kind of
Uh-huh.
him, and Lincoln was kind of just I don't want to say a beard or a mouthpiece, but somewhere in that area. Like the
Yeah,
ideas came from him mostly, and
right.
Lincoln was a great speaker, and he was kind of able to sell those ideas to the American
Mhm.
people, sometimes at the point of a gun, but he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
able to sell them. And you know, you would think that like modern day people would go, "Oh, that's a great guy. Like he did a great
Mhm.
thing. He was the idea behind abolition, and that's one of the best things to come out of our country was we were able to get rid of this slavery aspect of it that is a black stain in our country
Yeah.
for and it always will be, but again, there's nothing we can do about that. Like
Right.
we were born hundreds of years later. But anyways, if he were to live today, I don't know like if he would be considered a great man by the people that you're talking about running the country in your society, because not only was he an abolitionist, but he was also manifest destiny. He went and
Mhm.
bought Alaska and stole
Yeah,
this land from the natives, and
yeah.
that type of thing. So it's like no matter what, when you go back into the past, like the window of like what was considered to be like liberal at the time, like he would be at the time, he was probably considered a very liberal guy,
Yeah,
abolition, but
yeah.
also like liberals didn't really think in terms of colonization at that
Right.
point. And so like if these crazy blue-haired people that you're talking about were to read this book, they go, "Oh, this guy was a piece of shit because he stole Alaska from the natives." And it's like, well, can you really say that? Like he did a lot of great things, and then something that you consider not so great. Like I don't have a problem with him buying Alaska. Like I think the natives probably came out pretty well, pretty decent in that deal. I don't, I
Yeah,
mean, alcohol kind of destroyed them, but that's more their fault than the people who bought them's fault.
that's
You
just yeah.
know?
Yeah. Anybody, like I say, you can look at anyone almost in history, well, maybe a handful of people, but like I say, they're not going to do well under today's standards. It's
Uh-uh.
just, and to judge them by that is totally unfair. You can just imagine what they're going to think about us in 100 years.
Yeah,
We're going to be a bunch of Neanderthals for something. I don't know what it's going to be, but
for sure.
yeah, we're just, um, I wish I could remember who it was. It was a really good quote, but something, it was about the Roman Empire. And this gentleman talking says, if you could bring someone from the Roman Empire, the height of the Roman Empire, and you put him in with us today, says we would probably have more in common with the first alien that showed up than him. We just,
Probably.
yeah, he says he would just think things that we would just be, totally just, couldn't understand. Yeah, how could you think that? But
Yeah.
he says we just would not relate to them at all. So,
I watched a really funny cartoon a while back on YouTube, where a bunch of like blue-haired screaming liberals were fed up with the fascists, running our country. So they used a time machine to bring back soldiers from World War II that were anti-fascists to come and fight the fascists. And like when they come back in time, like they start talking about like women and blacks, and all of a sudden these liberals are like, "Wait a minute, you're
yeah,
supposed to be the anti-fascists. Like, what
yeah.
is this? What's going on here?"
I've seen those quotes where they're trying to say World War II soldiers were the as a anti-fat as a 180 out here guys. I don't know how you put these two together, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
yeah,
funny. Anyway,
yeah,
like
that is
I
a good one.
on in the same vein, like I had a buddy who did a post. Like I lived in San Francisco for 5 years, so a lot of my friends in San Francisco are let's just say figuratively they have blue hair now. Like when
Okay,
I lived
okay,
there, none of this crap mattered. Like nobody cared about politics. It was all
yeah,
about music and
right,
having fun. But now all of a
yeah,
sudden, They're
Yeah.
screaming at the top of their lungs on Facebook every day about how horrible the country is, and, you live in the most beautiful city in
Yeah.
the country, and life's really great for you, but everything's just going to shit, and you can't stand it. But anyways, he posted a picture of, Eisenhower with a bunch of his men, like, standing to the side of him, and it was like, "These are the anti-fascists, we need more anti-fascists." And I remember looking at it, I'm like, "God, have you ever heard of Operation Paperclip?" Like, this dude funded Nazi war criminals all through his entire presidency. Like, come on,
Yeah.
people. Like, to think that like anybody who's a president like has serious problems. Like,
Yeah.
it, you have a
I don't, I think we should draft presidents myself. If you
yeah.
want the job, you don't need it.
Yeah,
So
I mean, exactly. If you want the job, you don't need it because
you don't
you've
need it.
got
Yeah.
you're in a way like a sociopath for the most part. Like you think the rules don't apply to you. You
Yeah.
you have this
Sure.
power complex to where you think you have the right or the divine,
Yeah.
nature to come and rule over 350 million
Yeah.
people and decide policy all throughout the world. And it's one of those things where, yeah,
I
like you
agree. I
said,
just the people running for office. I'm sure there's exceptions, but most of them, I just think they have no business. We should just draft one. He's commander in chief, so we're going to have a draft, and
yeah,
that way they can't turn it down. No, sorry, buddy, we didn't ask. You're being drafted.
yeah.
You got it for the next 4 years. So
And it's one of these things where people get into politics now as a job, where it
yeah,
used to be like, it's supposed to be like you've done your work in the free market, you've built a good company, you've raised a great family, you've done good for your community, and now it's time to give back when you're your age or even, a little
yeah,
younger, whatever, how depending on how successful you were. But it was never meant to be a full-time job from the time you get out of high school or college. Like we have so many politicians in office right now who have never had a real job.
there
You
we go.
know,
And
like
that's yeah,
Bernie
yeah,
Sanders, Joe Biden, like these people never created anything. They never did anything good for the country. They just got in. Like I'm a big dirt bike racing fan. I used to race dirt bikes when I was a kid
oh,
and I
neat,
still
neat.
watch like racing on TV. And right now there's this case going on in the East Coast where this family built a dirt bike track for their kids years
Okay.
ago. And the
Hmm.
kids really love it and they ride out there every day and pretty soon, like, they had friends that they went to races with, and they wanted to come out and ride. So it's like, okay, we'll start a business so that way we can have a waiver. So if somebody gets hurt, like, we're not going to be liable for it. So we'll start this business and then we'll let other kids come in and ride and train and have a good time every day. Well, the neighbor did not like that. And the neighbor moved there after they built this, dirt bike
Right.
track. So they moved into an area with a dirt bike track
It's already
and
there.
you've got in the town where this is happening, the city manager is like 20 years old, 22 years old, straight out of college, never had a real job, friends with the Karen who doesn't like the noise, and they shut these kids' dirt bike track down.
Yeah.
And it's to me, it's so sick because you've got this guy who's never had a real job, who just wants to be a politician for the rest of his freaking life. And
Yep.
he would rather appease some Karen that he's friends with than let children do what they love. And it's like anytime we're taking away, opportunities from children to appease the older generation, there's a problem there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like that's happening all over the country right now where the average age of a first time home buyer is 41 right
Yeah.
now. And,
Yeah.
we're destroying the real estate market essentially for younger people so that older people, and even like myself, I bought a house in 2015. So after COVID, like my house went up like 50%. My house is not worth 50% more than what I paid for it,
Yeah. Yeah.
And like
I know
houses,
presented. Yeah.
the land, I guess, you can argue that land appreciates, but houses don't. Every year after they're made, they get worse and worse and worse, and they require more money. So this idea that like real estate just has to keep going up at an
Yeah.
astronomical rate,
It
screw
keeps
the
going up,
kids.
and like you say, it's, for whatever reason for the house, I live in a 30-year-old hair house now, and yeah, like I say, every year it just seems to
Yeah,
more maintenance, but, yeah, that's a good question. That's, 'cause that's and it's been that way forever just about. I mean, as long as in my lifetime, where real estate, yeah, it'll go flat, it'll go down, but it's gonna go up on you. But now to the point, like you just mentioned, since COVID, I have a son lives in Orlando, and he lives in a house with, like, 4 other guys because, an apartment is more than my house payment.
yeah.
I mean, a one-bedroom apartment in Orlando, and he obviously doesn't make what I do, so I'm a lot older and everything, but yeah, literally, he would be paying what I pay for a house payment just for a one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah. My mom bought a house when she was 17. Bought her first house when
Wow,
she was 17 in
wow.
Northern California. She got a great deal as, like, a
In
first-time home
California
buyer
even.
in
Ooh,
California. Paid, like, $79,000 for the house in the '80s, you know? And
yeah,
today, that same house, which is garbage, it was like a 1,200 square foot house. It's barely even a house, you
yeah.
know? It's on, like, less than a quarter of an acre. That same house is worth $700,000 today, which is just outrageous. Like, that house is not worth that much. It's crazy that, you know,
And who can afford to buy that? I mean, it's just
a
yeah.
100x, you know, a
I'd
100x
be
on a
eating
house in 20
yeah,
in well, I guess it's been 40 years, but it's
yeah.
crazy, you know?
Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, I'd be eating spam and, walking to work and probably selling roses on the weekend,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just amazing, yeah, just,
And I feel
mm,
bad, like, I'm from Northern California, and after I got hurt, you know, I was making 6 figures as a bartender in San Francisco, and then I
mm,
got into doing electrical line work, and when I got hurt, I was making, like, 14 bucks an hour or 15 bucks an
mm,
hour or something like
mm,
that, and I was working a ton of overtime, and, you know, it was an entry level job where you get through your apprenticeship quick because
right,
you're
right,
working, you know, 80, 90 hours a week, and you get your time in, and then you can go wherever you want, but
right,
essentially, when I got hurt, I'm on that wage that makes it impossible to live in California anymore. There was just no way I could live there. Like, even renting there would have been difficult because of the amount I was bringing in every month. So I bought a house here in Idaho, and now COVID hits and this house goes up 50%. And I rent rooms out at my house because I'm single and, like, I don't really
mm,
care that people live here. So
yeah,
I just rent rooms out at my house for extra
yeah,
money. And I feel bad because a lot of the people that are renting these rooms are young kids, you know, in their early 20s, and,
yeah,
you know, even I've even had some teenagers in here, and, like, I'm doing the same thing to them that happened to me in California. You know, the town that I grew up in was invaded by people from different parts of the country that wanted to live in wine country, and you can't blame them. You know,
oh,
Sonoma
yeah,
County,
it
where I'm
will
from, is one of the most
yeah,
beautiful places in the
oh,
country.
yeah,
But,
definitely,
you know, they move in, they drive real estate prices up, they
yep,
push
yep,
out people like me, like all the people that I went to high school with, barely any of them live there anymore
really,
because they got
mm,
priced out of the town that they grew up in. And now
yeah,
here I am in Idaho doing the same thing to these kids that happened to me, you know? I'm able to afford a house from here because I'm from a place that had, you know, more wealth involved. I was working in North Dakota, so it doesn't quite line up the same as what would happen to me, but the end goal, you know, the end story is I'm living here in a house that kids who grew up in this neighborhood can't afford.
and 40 more, yeah, yeah, that's, I don't know the answer, but, something needs to be done, you're right, I mean,
Yeah,
it's, uh yeah. I
you
know
know,
it's one of those things that and your point on the politicians, it's just, that's if I could if I had a genie popped up and he gave me one wish, I would wish for term limits. Now I don't know that it
yeah,
would solve the problems,
it would help.
but it couldn't make it any worse. It could not make it any worse. So
And get rid of the revolving door policy, you
yeah,
know, where if you're, you know, part of some committee that
yeah,
oversees some part of the economy, you can't work in that sector for 10 years after you get
totally,
out of government, you know? Or if
totally
you're working, you know, at some you're working for Doritos or Coca-Cola
right.
or something like that, you can't be on a committee that oversees those departments once you get into office. Like,
That's
you
the other thing, yeah, the contracting,
yeah,
the consulting, the, 6, I tried to write an op-ed on this, I've yet to write it, but I believe 6 of the 10 richest counties are in the Washington DC area.
yep, Virginia,
And
right outside of DC.
I have lived there, and that place does not produce anything.
Nope.
I mean, it's not like Silicon Valley, which, produces things, or, Austin, Texas,
Yep.
or Detroit. They don't produce anything other than just governmental papers, and
Yep.
6 of the 10 richest counties. So, that's a problem.
Yep.
That's a problem.
And some weapons. They do build some weapons over there,
There's some
which
there,
is,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
but
All
that's
headquarters,
about it. Like you said, they don't
yeah,
produce anything worth value. And, you know, weapons in this country are out of control where, like, they have, you know, these military industrial complex companies have a blank check to raise their prices as much as they can or as much as they want to because the government doesn't really care how much they charge for their stuff. They're going to buy it. and you've got this revolving door policy where you go in and you serve in office, and then if you do right by Raytheon, you get a board seat when you get out,
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
we, downsized we encouraged it. I'd say I was still in the Air Force at the time. We were encouraging because we didn't think when the Berlin Wall fell, the Cold War ended, we could not maintain the, defense infrastructure. So we, encouraged consolidation, which was a big mistake because now, like I said, there's so little competition. There's, um, weapons, and they'll come out and say they're too big to fail. We haven't.
Mhm,
It's like literally we haven't nothing else to buy, so they know we're going to buy it,
mhm.
and we really botched that pretty bad.
When I was a kid, one of my friend's grandmothers worked for Raytheon, and I had
Mm.
no idea what Raytheon was at the
Yeah, was
time.
that?
Like, it was just a company to me. Like, oh,
Mhm.
she works at this company called Raytheon.
Yeah,
And after 9/11, they were always telling us, like, oh, my mother says that, or my grandmother says that, like, we're at a heightened level of terrorist, activity in the country. And that there's, going to be a terrorist attack in the next week. And I always remember thinking like, why is why is this person know when a terrorist attack is going to happen when we're not seeing anything about it on TV, we're not hearing about it on the news, but this person knows it. And I always thought that was weird. And then when I grew up, I was like, oh yeah, well, obviously they're close to politicians, and if the politicians say something, it's going to come into Raytheon, and they're going to
oh,
ramp up weapon production. And as it turns out, all of that, propaganda about terrorist attacks coming after 9/11 were fake. I remember the day after 9/11, we had an appointment in San Francisco. Like, I lived in Sonoma County, and my sister had like a doctor's appointment in San Francisco. And all over the news, it was like, don't travel, don't go to big cities. The Golden Gate Bridge is going to get air
yeah,
bombed by a 747, and it's going to crash down. And we were finally just like, you know what? Screw it. Like, what's the chances that the 2 minutes that we're going to be on the Golden Gate Bridge is going to get hit by an airplane? And we went, and everything was great. We had a great day. It was a beautiful day in San Francisco because that's some of the best time of the year there is in September and October. And,
yeah, yep.
I remember years later when I started working there in San Francisco and living there, I was working on Pier 39, and they were still doing, you remember the color code that they had? Today's a
Uh-huh.
red day, today's an orange day. They were still
Yeah,
doing that in, like, 2012, 2014. There's been no attacks there at all, and they're still doing this. And I remember one day, like, they told us on the pier, they're like, "Oh, there's a chance of a terrorist attack today, so you guys don't have to come to work if you don't want to." And, like, Pier 39, you have to have your restaurant open almost
yeah.
every day of the year. Like, they let you take Thanksgiving and Christmas off, but that's it. And I remember thinking like, this is bullshit. I'm not fucking staying home because of that. And my boss was kind of the same thing. He was like, we know that a couple of restaurants are closing down because of this warning, and we want to be the only restaurants open. Like, we
Yeah.
want the business that day. And I was all for it. I'm like, I'm coming in. I'm not scared of this bullshit that they've been feeding me for the past 20 years.
Yeah, we overreacted so bad on that, and, like I say, when you do what you just described, they win.
Mhm.
They don't have to attack. If they get you to change your lifestyle, the way you're doing, I mean, they win. So, you open and just you stay your job open, you keep doing it. Again, because they're, I've seen things in the military that I remember I've been, counseled on or this or that or whatever, and I'm like, if they can do that, then we've lost.
Mhm.
If they can do what you just described, then they're, we've already lost. They're not. I mean, they can't. Yeah, they can't come after everything, shut down every bridge, bomb everything. And we just you be smart, but like I say, go to work. Don't let them change your lifestyle.
And it's not just them, it's the government as well. The
Well,
government
the
likes
government
the
doing it too. Yeah,
government
and then
likes to
same
know
thing
that
with
they can
government.
control you, and if they tell you something, you
Yeah,
listen, and it gives them this sense of power to say like, "Hey, we know if we do this again." Like, a lot of this, like, came into COVID where they knew they could get away with a lot of bullshit because they'd done it for so many years past 9/11. We're still taking our shoes off at the airport, you know?
yeah,
Like, I have foam shoes. I have, like, Crocs that are like, they're Merrells, but they're like Crocs, and they make me take them off at the airport, and it's like, what am I gonna hide in my fucking Crocs? Like, this
yeah,
is
yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah. That's a. I've seen grandmothers, so poor little there they
Ah,
were going through,
yeah.
like, "Oh, come on, guys, please, yeah."
Yeah, we
Yeah, just
treat every American like a terrorist as soon as you walk
yeah,
into the airport. You know, it's a big
yeah,
problem where law
and
enforcement in this
that's
country looks at us as the enemy. You know, and
yeah, yeah,
that's the wrong way to look at the American people. It's like every
right,
person is an enemy. You know,
right.
and every
I think
person is
so.
out to kill me. Like it's just a
Right.
state of paranoia that creates problems. You know, every time you have an interaction with a person. Most interactions are fine with law enforcement, but there's a lot of them that are very bad right from the beginning because they view you as the enemy as soon as they come
Yeah,
into contact with you, and that's a terrible place to be as a
it is,
person
it
where
is.
you think everyone is against you.
Yeah, yeah, that's not healthy.
No, it's absolutely not. So, we kind of veered off from your book, but
Yeah, a
let's
little bit.
that's
But
okay.
good discussion, good
It's
discussion.
okay. It's a podcast. We can do whatever we
Yeah.
want.
Hey, you're in charge.
There's
Yeah,
no
it's
time
yours.
limits. There's no set questions. So tell me a little bit about like I think that's a great premise for a book because I like sometimes I read a lot of sci-fi and sometimes I'll read something and go, that's just ridiculous. Like that could never happen. But the premise that you laid out like seems very possible. I was reading a John Scalzi book the other day and he writes great about like war. He was a soldier as well, so like he has a great perspective on war and it took place in the future and there was like this group of aliens that got together and decided you couldn't colonize planets anymore unless you were part of their group. And so you know the world government on Earth, which you know again that's kind of plausible where we're
Yeah,
going to have a
yeah,
one world government at some point. It just seems
some
like
point.
we're moving in that direction. They decided we need to take out this group so we can colonize where we want. And what we're going to do is we're going to kill the head guy, you know, and then everybody will fall and democracy will spread around the region type of thing, you know? And so they kill this guy and they go, what we didn't realize is that this guy was a moderate and he was keeping all of the radicals from coming and wiping out our planet. So now we don't have this moderate in charge. And I remember thinking, like, God, you know, even hundreds of years in the future, we still don't understand the blowback theory. And like that totally made sense to me. And
That's a good premise for a book. Yeah,
right.
it is.
And
Yeah.
same with yours. Like that makes sense. It seems like we're heading in that direction.
Yeah, I tried to think of just something. Well, I forgot how probably my imagination because again about the plaque there, and I just see someone would be horrified by that,
Yeah.
and way we're talking, and then if you just go to the thing like that's our legacy sailing off into the cosmos. We can't stand that. We can't allow that to stand, and
Yeah.
here we are running out of the solar system trying to track it down, and
I always say that like one of the scariest things about space travel for humans is that we're going to go spread democracy on other planets. Look at these backwards aliens. They don't understand what democracy is,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Well, I like Winston Churchill. It's the worst form of government till you look at some of the other ones. That's
Yeah.
I think that's his quote
Uh-huh.
about it. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's
That's funny
well,
though.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Have you ever read The Forever War?
I have not. I probably should. I know
Yeah.
of it. I'm familiar with it, but I have not read it. No.
I don't wanna give too much away, but, like,
Oh, okay.
it has a lot of aspects of, like, what you're discussing where the main character, is on deployment in a war in a different space, you know, in a different part of space, like, way
Yeah.
out there, and they're flying relativistic spaceships that essentially are time machines, right? So,
Hmm.
he'll go
Yeah.
on a deployment, and then he'll come back, and only a couple years have gone by for him, but hundreds and even thousands of years
Right.
have gone by on Earth, so, like, he gets into a situation where it's just this liberal hellhole essentially and all of the things that you could see going wrong with these crazy liberals being in charge
Mhm.
happens and he's got this main character who's like still a man, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everybody around him is just this crazy and gay and just all this crap. So at one point he's like one of the only straight men in the in the world and he's just got all this crap around him, and I always thought that was a great premise because you look at it and you go, "God, I don't like it, but I sure see how it could happen."
Forever War. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. You should
I'm
read
sure
it.
you've seen Idiocracy. That's
Oh, yeah, that's a great
yeah,
movie.
that's the comedy that became a documentary.
I
But
know it. So many I'm wearing those Crocs right now, like, I remember hearing that, like, they found Crocs this was, like, before Crocs got popular, and they're like, "Oh, these shoes are cheap and they're weird, so we'll use them." And then it turned out
yeah.
to be true where, like, everybody's wearing sweatpants and Crocs now.
Yeah.
That's a great one. That's a
Yeah,
great
yeah,
movie.
definitely.
So, Do you have, like, anybody in your book who is not on board with the world that they live in and is trying to push back or anything, or
Yeah,
are all
yeah,
your main characters kind of
definitely.
crazy?
The overseer, he's not the captain. He becomes a captain, but he's the overseer because captain's too much Western
Mhm.
civilization term, if you will. But yeah, his whole he's white, straight, and male, and
He's a
so
problem.
yeah, yeah. He's and the nation's horrified that he's on the ship. So the nation's most prominent social justice officer. And when I created the social justice officer, I kind of used the old Russian political officer, that model, and the Taliban, the religious police for the Taliban.
Uh-huh.
That's pretty much what in his Will Borgman, and he's actually running the ship because he's the in charge of the social justice of the ship. And Penn figures out after a while he's not in charge of the ship because the social justice officer is pretty much in charge, and he's going. There's people are making if they commit. Well, one kid they found ate a cow at a younger life, and the
Uh-oh.
FBI send that to him. So they put him in a hypersleep chamber, and now everybody's getting caught in these crimes against social justice are being put in a hyper sleep chamber. And that's the thing. And China is obviously China's trying to work against us. They have a hidden. They have a there's a, subplanet that we don't know about that China is mining, and they've put viruses, and they got so our space, your radars, our satellites, and or excuse me, the telescopes don't know it's there, so they've got it hidden. But it turns out if the things with the ship comes back the way the Chinese don't want it to, and I won't bore you with all the details on that. The spare is going to sail right by this planet. They're going to discover it. So China is trying to prevent this from happening,
So
and so they're
basically
working with the social justice officer, and there ends up with a mutiny. And yeah, he's basically the other side to it is his XO is a very sharp guy. He's kind of on his side, if you will. The doctor's on his side. If you think McCoy, that's almost the doctor. He's
okay,
pretty
yeah.
much like McCoy. And there is an artificial intelligence. His great grandfather is on the ship as the world's first human digitally resuscitated human. And a long story how that got there. But so he has someone for the 20th century with some common sense, and that's kind of the humorous part of the book. Is this who I kind of modeled on my dad, but dealing with these 22nd century people, and he has 20th century common sense, and he starts explaining a lot to them that he starts learning from.
It's
So
interesting. A lot of cool technology
that's
there. Your social justice warrior sounds like the head of every HR department in corporate America right now.
about that's about him. Yes, he has his 2 hour mandatory Sunday meetings, and he talks about all the crimes of
Yeah.
America, all the horror, and all the stuff back in the whole government's against him. Basically, the plan is he's not going to make it. They expect this social justice officer to be in charge, and he would be, except for getting this his digital great grandfather kind of spoils their plans and stuff. So.
That's cool. There's a lot of cool technology to go through there.
Yeah,
I saw
it's fun to write, especially when you don't understand. There's some computer. I got a computer science background, but obviously a lot of this don't exist. So
yeah.
you just kind of look at it and put in some terms, throw nano in front of it,
Yeah,
and
yeah. Some some
that's
jargon, some
yeah,
scientific
jargon.
jargon.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is. That sounds pretty cool. So
Yeah, yeah, might as well. What kind of engine does your spacecraft run on? Like what kind of
it's
energy generation?
nanonuclear, ion
Nanonuclear.
propulsion with nanonuclear. Again, I just
Yeah.
nano. All right, it exists. We're starting it, but we don't know what it is. So make it nano. Yeah,
Okay.
I can
That
make
works.
it the nanonuclear with the ion propulsion. Yeah.
Are there any aliens involved in the story?
There's not. There's not. No, there. I talk about possibly. He wonders as he's come up to Voyager because nobody's really seen a picture of it because we destroyed it, and he's thinking, well, what if this is not our probe? He goes, "Good Lord, what am I going to do if that's the case?" And there's a little humor with that. He finds out they're a bunch of. He goes, if this probe, only has looks like a male and a female. He goes, oh, good Lord, they're bigots too. Anyway, that's just kind of he's thinking as he's going out to look at it, but no aliens, no.
That's fine. One of my favorite sci-fi television shows was Battlestar Galactica,
Yeah,
the one with
yeah.
Edward James Olmos, and I remember reading that like he had in his contract that there could not be aliens in the show.
in Battlestar Galactica,
Mhm.
really?
Yep, he didn't want
Now
any
you talking the
aliens.
'70s or
Nope, the newer one with Edward
the
James
newer
Olmos.
the newer
Yeah,
really that was a really cool show. I
it
can't get my wife
was.
to watch it. I keep trying to want her to watch it with me.
Yeah, it
But no
was great.
they no
No
you're right,
aliens. He
no,
wanted
they
it to
don't,
be
do
a
they?
human story. He wanted it to
Yeah,
be centered around people and, it's within this sci-fi setting, but it
yeah,
was it was about people and how they would react in the situation, what they would do, how they would,
yeah,
um yeah, like just how people would be when they were thrust into that situation, and also, the AI aspect of it is really
yeah,
good as well because at some point you can't even tell the difference between
right.
the humans and the aliens. And one of my favorite parts about that show was the ending where
Yeah,
they're flying over Africa and they've been, lost in space for
yeah,
I don't know how long, a couple years at this point, and
yeah,
they're flying over Africa, and Edward James almost goes, "Look at all the life here." He goes, "There's more life on this one continent than all 7 of our planets or 11,
yeah,
however many planets they had combined."
yeah,
And
yeah,
I always loved that because, like, one of the aspects of science fiction and science that I definitely disagree with is that, like, a lot of times when you go to an alien planet in a sci-fi show, it's paradise.
right,
It's
right,
beautiful and it's clean and it's
yeah,
pristine and it's unmolested by these dirty humans that,
yeah, yeah,
just destroy everything they touch. And like the real answer is like we're not going to find a paradise planet out there. We're on
no,
the paradise planet right now. Like this
yeah,
is it. We're never going to find anything, at least in our lifetimes. We're never going to find anything better than this. And I would doubt that we're ever going to find something better than this because for some reason we live on in paradise,
yeah,
and even
it
though
will
you hear these climate change, zealots that are just going crazy, like you go to any natural forest or natural park in the country and throughout the world and it's the most beautiful thing you can imagine.
we, definitely got a Goldilocks.
Yeah.
Definitely, everything just lined perfectly, which I've always found, inspirational, if
Yeah.
you will. Like,
And
I personally think it wasn't an accident. I think it was given to us for a reason,
I think
but
I think
it
that
is
as well. It just can't be an accident when we see all of these deserts essentially out there, or
yeah,
hellholes, and then we've got this just beautiful,
yeah,
pristine place with tons
with the
and tons of life. And
right access,
another thing
right
that bothers
location,
me is
right
like,
star, right everything, yeah.
yeah, they talk about terraforming. Oh, we're gonna go and terraform a planet and turn it into Earth. And it's like the same people that are telling you that we're gonna go terraform a planet or terraform Mars will tell you that climate change is gonna kill everybody. So it's like if we can't control the climate on this planet, how do you expect to turn Mars into Earth,
Turn
you
Mars
freaking
turn Mars
retards?
into a habitable place, yeah.
It's easier to live in Antarctica than Mars. Like this is
Yeah, oh, yeah,
crazy, you
and
know?
there would be people griping about that, I'm sure, that,
Oh, yeah.
not our right to do that to Mars. He goes, "Mm,
Yeah.
I think we can." I don't see any Martians complaining, but yeah, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I always wonder also like once we do get out into the cosmos and you go and you find planets that have like let's say Mars has microbial life underneath
Mm,
the ground or something like that,
yeah,
and
yeah,
are these crazy scientists going to come in and go, "Well, wait, we can't live here because we've got these little bugs that live underground and we can't destroy their habitat and what right do we have?" Like with Antarctica, like Antarctica has more resources than every continent combined, and we're not allowed to touch them because
gotcha.
what? We can't destroy the snow,
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, like, as a dirt bike racer, we always got shit for, you're causing erosion when you ride out in the hills. It's like, you're moving dirt from one place to another. What the fuck are we talking about
Yeah,
here? Like, this is crazy erosion. Give me a
yeah.
break.
Talk erosion, go look at the Grand Canyon if you wanna see
Yeah,
erosion. Yeah,
exactly. Like
yeah,
you're moving dirt from one place to another. If you stop riding on it for a season, it goes back to
you'll
normal
go right back
again.
to
It's
it,
so
yeah.
stupid.
Yeah, it's, yeah, we and yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if in your Mars example, there would be some that would say that, but it was that I don't see that growing into, anything, like you say, approaching, what we are, so, I mean, uh Yeah, and well, whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's it's funny to think, but you guarantee today someone would, whatever you're going to do, someone's going to find some reason that well, we can't do that. We don't have the right.
Mhm.
Well, I think we do. But,
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't care about little bugs. If if we
yeah,
find a planet that we can breathe air on and we can walk around without a spacesuit,
yeah,
colonize that fucker.
it's
Like I
ours.
don't, that's
Yeah,
ours. I don't care about the little bugs as long as
yeah,
they're not going to kill us and as long
yeah.
as they're
That's
not
right.
going
Yeah,
to,
yeah,
cause us any problems. I don't
yep,
care. It's like, what
yep.
are we going to do? Leave this planet how it is and hope that these bugs get smart in a billion years? Like screw off. Like we're taking it. I don't care.
I'm 100% agreement. I would
Well,
say
what
if
if aliens did that when we were only bugs? Well, then we wouldn't be here, but
we
we
wouldn't be
are,
here,
so we're gonna do it. Fuck 'em.
they would have won, but they
Yeah.
didn't. So.
Do you have plans for, like, a sequel or anything like that? Are you writing something new yet?
I've got one my editor's already working on. It's a Christmas illustrated fiction book,
Mm,
come out before Christmas. And
mm,
I just today finished the first draft of. I wasn't planning to write another one. I was just going to write this one book and be done. But I was talking to my editor, and that's just not a really viable
it's
model,
not.
if you will, business model. So yeah, I guess you're aware of that. So,
Yep.
um, and the third one I just finished. It's an alternative history, and it's the Red Tails of Dixie. And I haven't got a lot of it out on it yet, but it's the alternative history of the Tuskegee Airmen. And that one I'm going to be very interested to see how it's, because I'm going to have a lot of people telling me I have no right to write what I did, I'm sure, and what have
Mhm.
you. But they're airmen, I'm airman. I feel I have a right to write this alternative history. I really like it, but I'm sure a lot of critics are going to try to take this bark off my skin
Eh,
uh,
any
just for it.
press is
But
good
if they read the
press,
book,
right?
I think they would like the book. But they'll never get past the topic of the Tuskegee Airmen flying for the Confederacy. I just don't think they'll ever get past. But it's a
Yeah,
great story. I think and they'll come out. They come out. They're the heroes of the story. I love how the story it kind of grew as I was writing it. I think it's a great story, but you just know right on the front in today's world, there's going to be people just you can't say that. That's
yeah,
just you can't. Yeah, I
yeah.
can. And it's a free country. I wrote it, and I'm going to try to sell it.
A lot of times when the critics hate something, the audience likes it, you know?
Yeah, that's a good
And
point.
it's
That's a real good point.
any press is good press, and a lot
Yeah.
of the shows that the critics love on TV are awful, and a lot of the
Yeah.
ones that they hate are pretty good, you know?
Our
You
wife and
got
I wait for Rotten Tomatoes before we see a movie.
Mhm.
We want to see what the people think,
Yeah,
not
if you go to
necessarily
Rotten
the.
Tomatoes and you have a 0 score with the critics and a 75 or an 80 with the audience, you're good to go. People aren't even
Probably a
gonna
good
pay
movie.
attention to the critics, you know? Yeah,
Yep.
it was like that, Matt Walsh, What Is a Woman movie that got like a 0% rating on Rotten
Yeah.
Tomatoes, but the
Yeah.
audience was like 98% or
90%.
something
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
you know? So, yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. It sucks that, like, you can't just write 1 book. I've heard that you have to write at least 3 before you
Mm,
start to get any traction, essentially,
really.
and
Yeah.
I do know that, like, Amazon is a tough nut to crack when it comes
Yeah.
to their algorithm and the
Yeah.
whole
Definitely.
review system, like, you have to have a bunch of reviews in
Yeah.
order to, like, have it shown to people,
Yeah.
essentially, and,
Yeah, I've heard the number's 15. If you don't have 15, it's just like, that's the first of the probably a series of magic numbers, but,
yeah.
yeah, getting that's tough, yeah.
Yeah, and, hopefully, at least you have 15 family members that you can
Yeah, get
send the
on
book
it,
to
right,
with a
yeah.
$100 bill at it and go, "Hey, this there's more coming if you go to Amazon and give me a review," you know?
I've been begging for them on my website and my newsletter and on Facebook or wherever else. Yeah, and I've got like 6 on my little introduction. I did a little introduction that I put out for Apollo Weapon, and the book came out in January, and I'm up to 3. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm still begging for reviews. So
It's
yeah.
tough, like,
Yeah,
I
it is.
I recently read a book from a guy that I had on the podcast that he had, like, 9 or 10 or something like that, and, it was a great book, you know? It was as
Yeah.
good as any of the big writers on Amazon or on Audible that I listen to, and it sucks, like, that it's so hard to get traction on it. I listen to a lot of audiobooks on Audible, and a lot of it is review driven, but some of it is also, based on the narrator of the book. Like, I have
Hmm.
narrators that I like, so I'll just kinda listen if they're narrating and I go,
Mhm.
"Ah, it must be pretty good if they took their time to do it," and I'll listen to it, and I think a lot of the books that got tons of reviews, thousands and
Mhm.
30,000 or something like that, I think they were on Audible when there was very few people that were capable of having an audiobook done.
Right, right.
I think that there was a far less narrators at the time because the technology was tough,
Oh, yeah.
20
Yeah.
and even 5 years ago, the technology wasn't great for doing stuff like this, but now, you buy a mic like this, an audio mixer, and a computer, and you're a narrator. You
Yeah.
can have a
Yeah.
a book on Audible, and it's so much it's opened up so much, and there's so many books on there now
Yeah.
that it's really hard for, first time writers and even writers that have written a couple books to get any type of traction on there. And I know it's tough. Like
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, definitely.
it's
If
a
you're
tough nut to crack. YouTube's
Yeah.
kind of the same way when it
Yeah,
comes
yeah,
to
you yeah,
podcasts. Like
yeah.
I still haven't figured out YouTube. Like we get quite a bit of downloads on like the podcast, the audio
Uh-huh.
version, but I still haven't cracked YouTube, you know.
Yeah.
Like I had an episode do really well a couple weeks ago that I didn't even think was a good episode. It had a good title, like it was fine. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't like one of my best for
Yeah.
sure, and it got the most views that I've ever gotten out of a podcast, and it's like, "Well, how does that happen?"
Yeah.
And then I thought, "Well, maybe the next ones will do well too," and they didn't. It was right back to normal again, and
Back to
I
normal.
just don't I haven't figured that one out yet, and I think Audible and Amazon are kinda the same way.
Yeah, I if there's a, key or a roadmap or whatever, I don't I'm with you, I don't know what it is because it just doesn't make sense, and unless you're like Prince Harry. If your name's Prince Harry, you
Yeah,
got a bestseller. Of course, as I understand, probably didn't even write it,
probably not.
may not even read half of it,
Yeah,
but
none
anyway,
of those
yeah,
people
you
write
put
their
that name
books.
on that recognition and off you go, so
Yeah, they sit down with a ghostwriter for 20 minutes and say, "This is what I want the book to be about," and it's done, and, you
and
know
it's a bestseller, so,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, that's the way it is, I guess, but,
yeah.
I try to, say, "Well, hey, maybe I have a sex tape. I'll leak a sex tape," but I think in my case, probably wouldn't help any.
I remember listening to an interview with Malcolm Gladwell, a couple years ago, and, he was talking about Donald Trump Jr. had written a book about, like, kind of woke politics and shit like that, and he was like, "I've invited this guy to sit down with me and interact with the book because I wanna find out if he read it or not." And I kind of, like, didn't really know about ghostwriters back then, and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
that's interesting. I
yeah,
bet none of these people actually write their books,"
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And he was like,
I
"I wanna sit down with him, I wanna ask him questions, I wanna see, if he wrote it and why he wrote it, and he won't get back to me." And Malcolm Gladwell's a pretty big name, so, like,
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
huge,
like
huge.
he couldn't get a hold of Donald Trump Jr., like,
Right, right.
he had a line to get a hold of him through an
Oh, yeah.
editor or, some way he had a chance
He
to.
calls me, I'll
Yeah.
answer it real quickly.
Exactly, exactly. So I found that interesting because, like, man, I bet none of these people actually write their books, and that was kind of like an eye-opening experience. So I
Yeah,
always do respect people that will disclose that they work with a ghostwriter, you
sure,
know?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I remember, a while back, like, I was watching an interview with Alex Jones, who I find to be very funny and very entertaining. Not necessarily right about everything, but still very funny and
yeah,
fun to listen to.
yeah.
And, he was talking about a book that he had just put out, and he was like, "Yeah, my ghostwriter's really good, and this turned out really well." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool that he was willing to
Yeah,
disclose that, like, he's like, this came from notes that I've been taking over the
yeah.
years, and we took notes from shows that I've done over the years, and we kind of got together and got this book together." And I was like, "Oh, I actually like really respect that he
Yeah,
was,
yeah,
humble enough to admit that he didn't write the book, that the
right,
ideas
right.
are his, but the actual
Mhm.
words on paper weren't." And I thought that was commendable of him to do that because,
And you
Mhm.
should. Like I said, that guy, you're obviously paying
Yeah,
him or her, but they deserve the credit. That
yeah,
they wrote it, they should have the credit.
yeah,
Your
absolutely.
ideas, but they wrote it,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
agree.
not
Totally
easy
agree.
to write a book, you know? I've
No,
been
there's
writing a book for a long time, and I have to peck with one finger, so it takes me
mhm,
a long time to write, but I can imagine, for any writer, it's a daunting process, and you gotta get at it every day and get into a groove. And
yeah.
what's,
Have you
s
this your first book then, or
yeah, oh, yeah, it
Ah,
probably is gonna be the only one, to be honest. Like, for me, it's not so much about making money or, like, sure, I'd love people to read it, but at the
yeah,
same time, like, it's been such a long process in the carpal tunnel, and I can't really do the talk to type. I've tried it. It's just doesn't
Really?
work for
Yeah.
me. I end up doing more work editing and moving stuff around than I
Yeah.
would just
Yeah.
typing, you know. So it's one of those things where it started out where like kind of like you, people told me I should write a book for a long time because I've had a crazy life. Like I've went through a lot of crazy stuff, ups and downs, you know. I was a drug addict when I was younger. I was almost a professional dirt bike racer and got into drugs after I washed out and, you know, got clean, got a great job, got married, got another good job, blew my hand off, and it's just, you know, ups and downs and stuff that would make up for a decent book.
Yeah.
And I started writing like an autobiography that was just kind of an anthology of stories that didn't really connect. It was just like stories that of things that I've done throughout my
Uh-huh.
life. And I started writing and I was like, you know, I would never read this. Like, not to say that nobody would, but like I don't find this to be that interesting. Like I would just never buy a book like this. So like why don't I write a book that I would enjoy rather
Yeah.
than just writing something for the sake of writing it? So I decided to take my main character and kind of like your AI is based on your father, like my character is based on me. We have the same backstory, and then we diverge when the change event happens in the book. And there's this like, you know, post-apocalyptic EMP
Mm.
essentially where it knocks out power to the entire
Yeah.
world and he has to figure out how to survive and keep the people around him alive. And so it's me and I kind of looked at it as like how would I hope that I would act and what do I hope that I would do if I was put into this situation. So I
Yeah.
can still tell stories about my past and
Yeah.
have that autobiographical aspect to it, but couch it in science fiction and things that I enjoy listening to and reading, you know, and that was kind of the route that I ended up
That's
taking.
that's great 'cause you got your themes that you wanna
Yeah.
say, but you use the science fiction element to bring them in,
Yeah.
and, you say it just, it tells your story, but tells it in a more entertaining way.
Yeah, exactly, and
Yeah.
I've
Hey,
got a
I mean, find me a, you know, a based on a real story movie, and that thing, if you know anything about it, they are so far off because you
mhm,
know, it's just really a boring story
yeah,
when you try to tell a lot of things that happen.
yeah,
You know, oh, we just saw one, my wife wanted to watch it, it was based on a true story. Well, three-fourths of the story had nothing to do with reality. It's
yeah,
just they created all this stuff and put in it. Go like, man, don't call that a real story. I mean,
yeah.
or even based on a real story. But what you described is really interesting. There, have you done any motivational speaking? You sound like you got a great background for motivational speaking.
No, I haven't. I am a good speaker. I got in
You are
trouble when
very
I
good.
was a kid. I got in trouble for hazing when I was in high school,
Uh,
and it was a big thing, and I got arrested on, like, 28 felonies, and they tried to destroy my life for dazed and confused style
uh,
paddling hazing, and, one of the things we had to do for the program that we agreed to do was to go around, and I had to speak in for we, like all the guys that I got busted with, had to speak in front of the school and go to the Lions Club and the Rotary Club and pretend that we were so sorry and none of the kids that I got in trouble with were capable of doing it, so I kind of had to do it. I was the only one that had the ability to do it, so I got used to public speaking, and,
okay,
then I was a bartender for, like, 10 years, and that's kind of,
that's a perfect.
you
Yeah,
know, the same type of thing. You're performing for an audience essentially, like, you're the performer and they're watching you and you're kind of, you know, making the atmosphere in the bar what it
yeah,
is, like, you're kind
yeah,
of responsible for that whole thing, and that
right.
taught me to deal with people really well as and, I don't know, it's just something I don't like traveling is the big
Yeah,
thing, where
yeah,
if it was just around here in the Boise area, I wouldn't have a problem doing it, but for things like that, it's kinda like writing a book. You have to write a few of them, right? You
yeah,
have to kind of
right,
do it
yeah,
in order to get yourself, like, into a position where people are gonna hire you to do it, and there's just not enough jobs like that around here, and I'm not about to travel all over the country doing this. I
yeah.
hate traveling, I hate
And
flying.
I'm sure that's hard to break into as well and
Ah,
everything.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, I it was
But
something I considered when I got hurt, but it quickly, it was just like, you
I mean,
know.
your podcast here is a avenue, you know, like you say, you can do
Exactly.
a great place there, and yeah, and you can give motivational speeches here just as easy as you could on the road. So yeah,
Exactly, and they can listen to them anywhere, and
right,
yeah,
right,
it's one of those things where the idea of it's cool, but the actual practice of it
Yeah,
is not
yeah,
for me, you know?
yeah,
It was
yeah,
yeah, it was
un
one of those things.
yeah,
I had a buddy tell me a while back that I should get into comedy, and it was the same thing. It was like, I don't wanna like, I as a good dirt bike racer, I know how hard it is to get good at something, you know,
yeah,
and how many hours of practice
yeah,
you have to put in and
yeah,
all the travel that I had to do with dirt bike racing, and it's just like, it's not something that I really wanna do. I don't like
yeah.
bars, I don't like nightlife, like, I've worked in bars for so long that I don't enjoy going out and being in these bars and nightclubs and shit like that, so it's like, it's just
Yeah,
not for me. Is it something that I think I could do and be decent at? Probably, but
mm,
it's not in practice, it's just not for me.
yeah, yeah, that's you rate Outliers, I take it.
I
Yeah,
have,
there you
and
go, the 10,000 hours,
I
yeah,
think he's
yeah,
correct because
the
I
10,000
don't
hours
know
is
I don't know, like, there's 2 things in my life that I've put in 10,000 hours in, it's dirt bike racing and bartending, and
okay,
it's tough. It's tough,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
probably put in, I don't know, 3 or 4,000 hours in line work, and I wasn't
mm,
even close to good at it, you know?
good, yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
was good at my part, and I
right,
was
right,
okay at well, not great, obviously, but I was
I think,
decent enough at it. I was doing things that I shouldn't have been doing. I was doing things that were over my head, and I worked for
mm,
a bad employer that kind of had us
uh,
doing things that we shouldn't have been doing, and I was too
yeah.
stupid and young to look at it objectively and go, "Slow down," and stay in your lane and do what you're
My
supposed
dad
to
was an
do.
electrician. He had electrical contracting business for a number of years. Yeah, and
Yeah,
we had a couple guys that thought, just how they lived was a miracle because, like I say, they ran a feed tape into a high power
yeah.
line and should have killed them. They didn't. Or
Oh,
don't know why. But
more
yeah,
people die doing electrician work than line work,
yeah,
and we're
yes,
safer. We have a lot more safety gear, and we've got practices in place to kind of keep ourselves. And we work on a lot of times when we're working on something, we'll knock out the power. Where
right, right,
electricians are
right.
working on a lot of live shit, and we
I
work
see.
on
Yeah,
live shit too. But it, even like you, it takes 8,000 hours to be a journeyman
mhm,
lineman, and
right,
like I could
right.
imagine me even doing another 3 or 4,000 hours, I wasn't gonna be, there yet. It would probably take that 10,000 hours,
Uh,
12,000 hours
yeah,
to be
that's
actually good at it.
just because you're journeyman doesn't mean you know everything. Yeah, I mean,
Exactly,
which is
exactly.
there's still a lot to
Yep,
learn.
for
It's
sure.
and it's a lot of things that, so, that's things we just take for granted, a lot of stuff like that electricians, all the stuff that we do that's, so much expertise behind it that you don't know about. You
Mhm,
just expect to go over there, throw on the switch, and the light's gonna come on.
yeah.
Well,
People
it's
look
easy
at
for us, it's not easy for the people to get it to work, but,
No, people look at us as like we're just knuckle draggers that, go out to work and keep the power
yeah,
running, and, like, if normal people realized, like, how much work and how much effort and like, I
yeah,
look at, like, line work as being one of the most skilled
oh, yeah,
construction jobs in the world because you have to know so much,
yeah,
you have to be smart. Like there's guys that are not very smart that do line work, but they're never going to be foreman or
right,
area foreman or stuff like you have to be smart to actually be in charge and be able to lead people and teach people
right,
and
yeah,
there's so much to it. And like I saw a great meme the other day where it had 4 squares. In the top square, it was a lineman and a groundman work on a pole, and
mhm.
the next square, it was like a cableman that was like running cable inside of a building. And the next was like a server room that was kind of like setting up these servers. And then the bottom one, it was a bunch of women having drinks and it said HR. And it was like, we make this place run. What do we even need men for?
I've seen books on that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like you realize, like I said, the people who build our buildings. That yeah, I mean, men get a bad rap a lot of times.
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
say, good Lord, we're stupid. Good Lord, we can be stupid. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's what everything built by this country, pretty much predominantly. Well, there's women out there, but it's don't
It's 80,
a
90%
lot of men
men.
got
Yep.
built this country and keep it running.
Yep.
So don't
Yep.
see us. We're back in the background, but
Yep.
yeah.
They have no idea what it takes to keep the technological society running.
Oh, yeah,
It's
yeah.
just
You brought up your book of the EMP. Have you
yeah.
read, 1 Second Later?
I have not read that yet. I need to read it because it's one of those things where I don't wanna be influenced too much
Ah, right,
with
right,
writing a similar story. Like
uh-huh,
mine, it has aspects of the post-apocalyptic, it skips years and years. Like the
Oh,
guy ends up getting infected with nano robots that keep him alive
okay.
forever.
Yeah.
So it goes
Oh,
over
okay.
the whole
Yeah.
book takes place in like 200 years, and then
Okay.
there's a
Okay.
technological city and some aliens are involved, and it's a whole
Okay.
thing. So it's not exactly the same as One
Uh,
Second Later would be, but I feel like if uh, I don't wanna be influenced too much by it,
understand.
you know?
Understand. I
So
did
I
the same
will
thing
read
with
it
a friend of mine.
someday, but after I'm done, like, writing
I
my part of it.
I read it and I went out and bought a bunch of canned food
Yeah,
after I read
for sure,
it.
for sure. I mean,
It
the
was
government's done like, DARPA and the military have done studies on, like, what would happen if we had a big EMP, and essentially, if you don't get the power on within a week or 2, it's never coming back on.
it could and chaos would it would not we would fall quickly.
Mhm.
And I'm sure countries that don't like us know that.
Yeah.
But
And I mean, just like people don't think about all of the aspects that come into like making a power grid. So, like, we have these big transformers that are in substations that are step up or step down transformers that'll take you from 500 kV down
yeah.
to, 32 or 14.4 or
Mhm.
whatever you're going to. And these transformers are massive,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
none of them are built here. We don't have enough extra of them
Yeah.
to replace all the
Extra.
bad
Yeah.
ones that get knocked out in EMP. And then, you gotta these things are produced in China, they're shipped over here on massive ships, then they're put on trains, then they're put on big trucks, and finally they're installed with cranes, and, like, none of that stuff works either in an
Yeah.
EMP, you know?
Right.
And then
Right.
you forget about little things like communication. How are you gonna coordinate? How are you gonna get all your linemen into work, you know? Like, if you
Yeah.
don't have a walkie-talkie or a cell phone or something like that, it's damn near impossible to coordinate. What do you need? Smoke signals? I mean, it
It's
gets to the point where if it's all out, it's really hard to get anything back on. You have to find a crank path. There's only certain forms of electricity that you can use to start up the rest of the grid.
yeah.
Wind and solar would never work for that. It's
Yeah, it's not
just
gonna work, is it?
no, and you have to get everything humming at the right frequency. It's really tough. DARPA did like an exercise in on the East Coast, Plum Island, and they were like doing a cyber attack, which a cyber attack is great compared to an EMP.
Okay.
Cyber attacks are whew,
You
we got
you can
lucky.
recover from that.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
one of the things that was hardest for them was coordination in bad weather. Like it was during the winter time, so the weather was nasty and
Yeah.
they had a really hard time finding a crank path because they couldn't communicate. Like every time they would find a path, another part of the attack would hit. And a lot, one of the, it failed essentially. Like they
Yeah.
weren't able to do it. But
Is it where
like
where did that occur again? I'm sorry?
Plum Island.
Plum Island, I'll look it up. I need to look
Yeah.
that up.
Plum
That's in
Island is a weird island. It's where, like, if you're into
oh,
conspiracies, it's a weird island. It's,
oh,
where people think, Lyme's disease was created.
oh, okay.
Yeah, they had, like, an animal testing facility, and it's right near Lyme, Connecticut,
Okay.
where Lyme
Okay.
disease was first done, and then there's also theories that they've been, like, playing around with wormholes and time travel and all kinds of
Oh,
weird
really?
stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
it's
hadn't
a it's
heard
an interesting island for all those
okay.
reasons.
Well, alright, I gotta look that up.
Yeah,
Alright,
yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, but, I don't remember what the DARPA, but if you look up, like, DARPA, um, cyber attack Plum Island, like, you'll find
Oh,
it. It's an interesting Wired magazine did a really good write-up on
ah,
it, and,
okay, great. Great.
it's one of those things where people don't realize how close we are to living in the Stone Age again,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's scary. And I say, and people don't know it. Our elected leaders don't talk about it. I mean,
Uh-uh.
our adversaries, they know it. They know it. Of course, they probably know we can do it to them too. So maybe that's the old deterrent thing's the only thing keeping us from happening. But someone who does nothing like a terrorist, which I think is pretty much a terrorist in the 1 second after kind of, I think is Iran, I
Yeah.
believe, kind of Iran slash terrorist that didn't have as much to lose, if you will. I think that's where it came from. And like you say, I live in Florida here, and after we have a hurricane, every line truck
Yep.
in the country is heading down there to it, and
Yep.
it's amazing how they bring it back up as fast as they do. I
I
mean,
know.
we get things up and running, but when you do half the nation or more, those trucks can't come down here because those
Mm-mm.
trucks, well, one, like you say, they're not running. Two, they got their neighborhood, their own area they got to work on.
Mhm.
So we can't pull all those resources. So
And they've
it
also got a family, you know? If
that's
you're
true.
out
Yeah,
and as far as you know, everything is out, like, what incentive do you have to go to work and try and get everything up and running again when you've got a family to
yeah,
protect, you know? Because,
oh yeah,
like, your neighbors are if you're more prepared than your neighbors, like, you're kinda screwed, you know? Because they're
mhm.
all gonna be looking at you, and one of the things that I also like to tell people that do like prepping, you know, like you buy a bunch of canned food and you buy a bunch of the
Yeah,
stuff to
yeah,
prep for it, you still have to have some luck involved because if you're at your son's basketball game 40
oh
miles away
yeah,
from your house and the power goes out, now
yeah,
your whole bug out spot is wide open to everybody who knows that it's there. You can't really tell people that you have it because if people know
yeah,
that you
yeah,
have it,
yeah,
you're a target immediately. And like,
yeah,
how are you going to get 40 miles in Mad Max land? You know,
yeah,
it's pretty difficult to like walk your entire family down the highway, and you don't have like if you're lucky, you've got a gun on you and you're
yeah,
concealed carry. But for the most
yeah,
part, like even if you do have a gun on you, what do you got? Two mags if you're lucky.
yeah,
So
yeah,
what good is that gonna do if you're walking 40 miles through a metropolitan area where everybody's hungry and there's no water and there's no sewage and things are just falling apart right around you? Like there still has to
yeah,
be some luck unless you're just staying at your bug out place all the time, which
yeah.
is not really living.
That,
That's just kind
that
of
one
getting
second
by.
after talk, so everything you just described kind of in that because his where he lives is on a interstate.
Yeah.
You got all the people in cars trying to come in. They realize real quickly they can't. We can't. We can't do anything for these people.
Yeah.
So they start basically barricading their town. And they say you literally you're looking probably 2 to 3 days, and we would be
Mhm.
freaking Mad Max. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
My
Wouldn't be.
guy in the story that I'm writing, he gets lucky and he's out camping, you know, and they have a houseboat on a lake. So they're
Okay.
stocked for a couple weeks of food and
Yeah.
they let things kind of calm down. And there's
Yeah.
also like a weird UFO style attack going on where people are getting killed as well. So they like don't want to go into town, but
Yeah.
they've got enough food for like a week. So they're just surviving. And in Northern California, it's pretty easy to hunt pigs. Like there's pigs
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
they're able to hunt and kind of get by for the time being, and then once things calm down, they're kinda able to go back into town and start scavenging and build their
Yeah.
society out, away from
Mhm.
civilization essentially because you want the most dangerous thing in that situation is other people. So,
Right.
the best thing
Yeah.
you can
Oh
do
yeah.
is get away from other people, and in the story, like, the the main character's family has like a bug out spot, like their house is kind of stocked with a bunch of stuff and they've got it locked up in a basement, but when they go to get everything, there's people already there trying to get in. So it's like, how do you get those people out of there? And it's, kind of like 2 versus 12, but they know the terrain and so they're kind of able to get these people, out of there and kind of get into their stash and move their stash out to the lake where they're living. But
Mm.
there's a lot of weird stuff that can happen in a situation like that, and,
Oh,
like,
yeah, and but,
it's
I
one of
mean,
those
it's,
things that, like, people in power don't wanna talk about it because we have absolutely no power over it whatsoever. If the sun decides to fart on us in the wrong
oh, yeah,
way,
sunspots, yeah,
it's all over, and there's nothing we can do about it except for have extra infrastructure in place underground, but I'm not convinced we have that. I don't think people are looking far enough ahead to kinda plan for something like that.
but it's kinda new. I think it probably if we'd had something like that in the let's just say even the '60s or '70s, we still had what I'm gonna call the old economy. We still had the, pre-digital electronics where, yeah, we'd take a big hit, but we could go back and
Mhm.
start producing stuff. Well, that's a lot of cases gone. I mean, everything's so interconnected and
Mhm.
digital now. The fallback is there's nothing there to fall back on,
Yeah,
and so
your car
this
is a computer on wheels.
yeah, yeah, it is, and, my wife and I just came back from a vacation in Australia, and I don't know why, you think of the worst things you can think of, if, like, say, that sun, I forgot what the thing happened in the 1800s with the sun,
Oh, yeah, the
sparked
Carrington event.
everything, thank you, that's it, yeah. I was saying, man, we're sitting here on an Airbus, man, this plane's gonna go in the ocean if that happened. I mean, this plane's one freaking computer, and
Yeah.
it's out its very hardened, something like
Imagine
that.
how lucky we are that we weren't if we weren't
Oh, yeah,
50
that
if
was
we were 50 years more advanced when the Carrington
yeah.
event happens,
Oh,
maybe everything gets wiped out, you know?
We'd be back in the Stone Age.
We
I
might
mean,
not have ever recovered from it, who knows?
yeah,
And, like, we've gotten so lucky that something like that hasn't happened yet, and it's
and
going
I
to happen.
guess
It's like one of
you know,
those ifs, not whens, and, like, there's a lot of
yeah,
people that worry
yeah.
about asteroids, and, like, yeah, asteroids are a problem, but they're not nearly as big a problem as an EMP.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess we don't really know. Obviously, because before that, we don't know if it happened since we
Mhm.
had no electronics. So
Yeah.
we don't know if it happens every 500 years or 100. I mean, I guess I'm not an expert, obviously, but I don't think we really have a clue. Often, and like you say, if that happened today, it would just eat us alive.
Oh, it would be unbelievable, like, it would just be chaos, and
It
Mad
would.
we'd
I
be in
mean,
Mad Max in no
yeah,
time, like, and
because I
people.
even the telegraphs, I think, were sparking and
Mhm.
stuff. That's about as
They were.
hardened technology as you can get, a
Yeah.
copper wire.
And, like, people aren't prepared for something like that. The everyday citizen can't survive in that world.
No, no,
80% of people, maybe 90, die because they just aren't capable of taking care of themselves. They don't have guns and ammo to hunt with,
yeah.
and that in that sense, like, the next intelligent civilization might be pigs, in Northern California, where my book takes place, pigs are out of control, and one of the hardest things that they have to deal with is keeping their produce and stuff away from the pigs because without the hunters out there to keep these things in check,
Oh
they're
yeah,
just vermin
yeah.
and they're going, they
Yeah,
breed like freaking rabbits and
yeah.
there's just pigs everywhere.
Pigs everywhere, yeah.
Well,
Uh,
tell people where they can find your book and check it out.
sure. It's basically anywhere you buy books online, you can find it. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple. It's Apollo wept. Just God Apollo, and then he crying wept.
Oh,
My
okay.
website.
I kind of thought it had something to do with the Apollo program.
Oh no, no. It comes from. It's in the book. Star Trek. Are you a Trekkie?
Yeah, the old stuff, the new stuff
Old ones.
sucks.
Yeah, the new ones, yeah, I can't get into the new ones, the old ones though. But who mourns for Adonis? I think who mourns for Adonis? Apollo is in it.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
anyway, so Graham Paul, as the digital from the 20th century, he has access to all those
Oh,
shows,
cool.
records. He brings them because he's showing them that, and he shows them that. And Penn, his grandson, well, he's under house arrest, if you will, because he's committed some social justice crimes, and he asked his grandpa, or his great grandfather, the digital one, was it's interesting. What would Apollo think of us today? And he sits there and he thinks, and I don't know what he'd say, but I know what he'd do. He would weep.
That's
So
good.
that's kind of where the book is. Atlas shrugged, if you
Yeah,
will, and
yeah.
Apollo wept. But yeah, hey, I think I can show you the. I'll put up here for everybody. There's the.
Oh,
It's
perfect.
coyoteauthor.wordpress.com.
Perfect. I'll have a link to it down in the description so
Oh, okay,
people
thanks.
can go
Yeah.
and
Yeah, that's my
click on it and
website, and, that like I say, that'll just kinda tell what I'm doing, and you'll get my standard. I got a blog and a little bit about the book, but you can get I say just anywhere you buy books online. The distributor I have is really good. They went out and got it just about just about any place you can buy it online, you'll find it.
I like to tell people you don't have to read the book to or buy the book on Amazon to leave a review. You can
Oh, absolutely.
you can leave a
Absolutely, yeah,
review.
there's
So
other places
even
to
if you're
release.
not gonna, even if you're not gonna buy it, go give them a review anyways. It's
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
those things
yeah.
where it'll
I
help.
would love
And maybe
yes,
you should.
yes.
I like to tell authors this is like a cool thing you could do is like if somebody goes and leaves you a review and they buy the book, like maybe find a way to send them a signed copy or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like there's
Mhm.
ways that you can kind of get it. Is there any plans for an audiobook or are you going to kind of wait and get a couple
It
books
it
out?
actually has an audiobook out. Now
Oh,
it's,
okay.
yeah, they came out with an audio, but it's, computer generated.
Ah,
I've Apple got one voice, and I think Audible has the other one.
they're getting
Uh,
better.
yeah, yeah, I'd love to do it myself, but I'm not qualified,
It's
but,
tough. It's tough to do all the voices
oh,
and all
yeah,
that crap. Like
yeah.
I've interviewed a narrator, an audiobook narrator before, and I kind of asked him about that, and he's like, "It's harder than you think."
I bet it is. I
Yeah,
bet it is, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I've listened. I bought it. I'm listening to it. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, for what it is, obviously I don't have the budget to go out and hire
yeah.
a professional at this point. One day I hope I do,
How
but
much is it, do you think?
I don't know. It came in. I'm with as Defiance Press. They're a real small conservative press publisher out of Texas, and it's a hybrid. You know, this they published it, and they told me they publish about 18% of what they receive, but hybrid. I've got money in the game, and they do too. So we both got skin in the game, if you will. And it was part of what the program. It's an ebook, audio book, and
Mhm.
and a paperback. So. But I don't know what it would cost, to be honest with you. That's kind of the marketing side. They just told me they're going to do it, and then, like I say, I got money in it. They got money in it. And I'm not exactly sure
Yeah.
what the cost
It's
is.
tough because you're not gonna make money on the first one, that's for
Yeah,
sure. It's probably
no,
gonna cost
no,
you quite a bit to do it,
yeah,
but hopefully
yeah.
you get another 2 or 3 out there and you'll start making some money.
I hope so. Yeah, I'm with you. And like you said, I really didn't do as much for the money. Of course,
Yeah,
I'll take it. If it takes it, and I get my movie deal. I'll be glad to take it and
yeah.
go to the. But I did it because I wanted
Yeah.
to tell the story.
Good luck
I
on a movie deal with a subject like that, right?
Yeah, that's probably not going to happen, is it? Yeah.
No, I think one of the cool things about artificial intelligence getting better is like it's going to allow people to create their own movies on stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe you
Yes.
can do like a short series where you can
Yeah.
kind of condense the whole thing and do,
Yeah.
10, 20-minute episodes or something like that. And it's not going to be a Hollywood budget movie, but it's going to be
Yeah.
close, and as long as you
It could
like,
be very good too.
yeah,
Because
and
that's AI technology. Like I say, what you're doing right here. 20 years ago, we could not have had
yeah,
this
and you can
conversation
put it
because
right on
there was a
YouTube.
hand.
You don't have to get a Netflix deal,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
just make it yourself, put it on YouTube,
You do. Yeah.
you put a link to the YouTube channel inside the book, and you go, "Hey, when you're done reading the book, go on to YouTube and watch this, short series
Yeah.
that I made on it." And like I said, it's not gonna be perfect, but you can get
Yeah.
it
Oh
good
yeah. Yeah.
enough and it'll be funny, and I think it's interesting to see books that like, there's so many books on Audible that I've read that deserve to be movies and
Ain't that something?
just
Ain't that
aren't,
something?
it
Yeah.
sucks. I'm like, a lot of the movies just suck now. Like, I watched, I watched what was that movie called? A Quiet Place. Did you ever see that one?
Yes. Saw it. Yes.
So
Yeah.
they like the first one was good, the second one, eh. And
Yeah.
then like they decided to come out with a prequel and it's like find out where the aliens come from and blah blah
Yeah.
blah. And then I
Right.
go and I watch it and it's not even about an alien invasion. It's about some fucking woman coming to terms with her father dying and she has cancer and it's just this ridiculous
Right.
drama that takes place in an alien invasion. It's
Yeah.
like can't we just have an alien and it's of course it's a black woman with she's bald and
Yeah.
anxiety and the whole
They
fucking thing.
they ride the popularity of the name of the show.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
using the IP to tell some stupid story that nobody fucking cares about, and it's
Yeah.
like, can't I just have a good old-fashioned alien invasion, you know? Like, that's all I really wanted is I wanted to see some
Yeah.
aliens kill some people, I wanted to see some shit blow up, and I
Yeah.
wanted to find out, like, why they're here, who they are, what they're about, and you got none of that. It was just this stupid woman trying to go to a pizza parlor because that's where her dad and her used to have pizza. It's like, come on.
Yeah, that's a hallmark. That's
It
a
was
hallmark. Don't
awful.
don't
It was so
don't put that
dumb.
on.
I
Yeah.
couldn't stand it. And it's like, just give us something fun. Like, I just want an alien invasion movie.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, I don't
Yeah.
care about this stupid woman
Yeah.
and her problems and her father and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just ridiculous. And they do that all the time. And they're resurrecting old IP so they can tell some stupid story that some dumbass writer came up with that can't get it published. And finally,
Can't
they
get
get
both.
some, their dad's brother works for the fucking movie company, so they're able to couch it in some IP that people care about, and it's like, there's so much just really, really good IP on Amazon of books that would just make for incredible movies,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
we don't get any of them,
No, you don't. You
We
don't.
Are Legion, We Are Bob, a great freaking series, and, like, it would make such a good show, like, it's funny. It kind of has, like, a similar theme to what you've got going on with your AI, where this
Mm.
guy, like, has a contract with a cryogenics company that when he dies, he gets frozen, so he dies
Yeah.
in a car crash, and then he wakes up, like, hundreds of years later, and they wanna put him into a garbage truck and make him a garbage truck. Because the government in power doesn't think that like people who are uploaded to computers are actually people, so they just want to use them as
Uh,
slaves, and they end up putting him into a von Neumann probe instead, and he kind of like saves the Earth and explores the galaxy, and like it's really funny, and it's kind of
huh.
like the same thing that I've got going on where this guy's a computer background, and it's like, "Okay, what would happen if I got thrust into the situation and I was put into, an AI
Yeah.
system, and,
Uh-huh.
like, what would I do?" And he
Yeah.
ends up making copies of himself, and every copy's a little bit different because he doesn't know why every copy's a little bit different, but he thinks that it's,
Hmm.
like, one of the rules of the universe that you can't have 2 of the same souls,
Oh, okay.
which
Yeah.
I always
You're
thought was interesting,
right.
and, like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that uploading your consciousness to a computer is even possible. Like, I think that
Yeah.
someday we'll be able to make a decent facsimile of a person, but, like, there's so much weird stuff about
Yeah.
consciousness that we don't
Yeah.
understand, and, like, first off, you would have to, like, isolate it and figure out what it is and where it is and how it's created, and then figure out some way to put it onto a computer, and, like, I just don't know if that's possible,
Yeah,
you know?
I'm with you. I in my book, Paul does excuse me, Pop. His consciousness as he evolves as it goes
Yeah,
on, and his conscious shows up.
yeah,
And he worked for DARPA, and again, my time frame's a little off because he'd be working for DARPA today, which but
that's
I needed
okay.
but I needed a 20th century connection. And but yeah, he tried that. He gave up, and then in his organic life, he gave up. But then, as he's this artificial intelligence, and he's getting ready to do something, his event, it comes back to him, and it's yeah. But I'm with you. I don't see how it would happen, but
Yeah. You run
yeah,
into those
just
same
don't.
problems.
There's part of our brain we just don't understand. I
Yeah.
think there's a reason for that, and I just don't think, yeah, you said we could ever digitize it.
Yeah, and you run into the same problems with the Star Trek transporter, right? Like,
Yeah,
are you
yeah.
copying the same soul? Like, what is happening there? Like, are you a little bit different every time you go through it? And it opens up a
I was
big
making
can of
I was
worms.
gonna do it, make me a little younger, yeah,
Yeah, right? Get rid
a
of
little
my
make
get
the DNA strands a little longer, or
yeah,
whatever, yeah.
get rid of all this gray hair in my beard while you're at it,
Yeah, get
you
rid of
know?
yeah.
All right, Chris. Well, it's been a pleasure
Hey,
talking with
I
you.
just came up with another book I didn't know.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
There you go.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. It was
Hey,
great meeting you. I hope people go out and
you
buy your
too.
book, and,
Well, thanks, sir.
I'll send you my email and let me know next time you have a book out, and, you can come
Yeah,
on and promote.
I sure will. I thank you. It's been enjoyable, talk. I really appreciate it. Just
Awesome,
been
man. Well, it was the pleasure is mine. All right.
uh,
Take care, everybody. Good night.
take care.